Over the years, I've received a number of emails from people who are coming from an Avid background, Avid editing software, asking if it is possible to use a three-point style editing when you're working with Edius. And indeed, this has been possible over the last 4 or 5 versions, I believe. In fact, it may have been there from the beginning. But as we come to version 6, it's actually even more so. In fact, version 6 is kind of a response to many requests from Avid editors asking if Edius could become more like Avid software. And so as we enter into version 6, we'll see that it is kind of more hardwired for this three-point style editing. And we may ask some people who are new to editing may ask, well, what do you mean when you say three-point style editing? And so let's just maybe start a new sequence here and get a blank slate here, and maybe bring in a clip. We can either drag and drop that over to our play window, or just by double-clicking on it, brings it into our play window. And the idea behind three-point editing is that you bring a clip into your play window and scrub through it by grabbing hold of this little time indicator here and moving it back and forth with your mouse and looking for a good in point. And once you've found a place where the camera is stable and you're getting a good shot, you can set an in point by going over to this little icon here and clicking it once. And that sets an endpoint. You can see that there's a difference in color there and that we have established an endpoint. And then you can scrub through it along or play the clip a little bit by pressing your space bar on your keyboard. And when you've got 5 or 6 seconds of a good stable image, you can set an out point. And how you do that is go over to the right-hand out symbol here and click on it. And you'll see now that we have selected a portion of this clip, and it's indicated there by the difference in color, the lighter color there. And so we have now set 2 points, an in point and out point. We now need to set a third point, and we can do that over in the record window under the in and out indicators here. We can set an in point, and you'll notice that the timeline changes color there, indicating that you have set an in point. And now, by using the Overwrite to Timeline button, we can send this video clip over to our timeline. And it comes in right at the beginning of our endpoint that we set there from the under the record window. And so now our clip is just as we defined it, with our in and outs safely over to our timeline. And yet that's not the only way that you can do a three-point edit. Let's bring in another clip here and see if we can find a good stable shot here, maybe right about here. And this time let's just set an in point on this clip and not set an out point. But over on the record side, let's set our 2 points over there. So we'll have 1 point on the replay monitor and 2 points over on the record monitor. Let's maybe just take it right out to the end there. So now we have our 2 points over on the record side or timeline window and just 1 point over on the play monitor. And now when we send our video clip over, we'll only send the portion that we've defined here with our in and outs, and it won't receive any more. So that's three-point style editing. Now, if you're coming from an earlier version of Edius, you will probably remember that in order to really do three-point editing well, you had to go into a user settings box there and look for an option called Apply Clips to Mapped Track. Well, we noticed that in version 6 that is not really even available, and that's because it's kind of a given. It's a basic. It's kind of hardwired to apply clips to mapped track. You may have noticed that when we sent the clips over, that they landed on video track 1 and audio track 1 and 2, and nowhere else. And so if we really wanted the video to land on track 3 and the audio to land down on track 3 and 4, then we need to tell Edius that that's what we want to do. So let's grab another clip here. Hey, we see someone plowing their fields there. Let's go ahead and select our in point and select our out point and go over here and find a spot there where we would like to maybe just cover up this shot and set an in point there for our 3-point style. But this time, before we send the clip, let's tell Edius that we want the audio and the video to go to a different place. So let's drag this up to video track 3. This little indicator here kind of designates the track that you want to send your video to. And let's send our audio down to 3 and 4. Okay, and now that we've told Edius that we want our material, our media, to go to these tracks, we've kind of mapped these tracks. Let's go ahead and send our clip and notice what happens. So we see what's happening here by telling Edius where we want each edit to go. We can be very precise about our editing, very deliberate. All right, now for our tutorial, I think what I'd like to do is take an edit that I'm working on here, this story of the young girl in Cambodia, about her daily life. And you'll see that I've already kind of finished this edit. And so what I'll do is now go ahead and re-edit maybe the first little bit of the video using the 3-point style editing and show you in more detail how that works. And then in my next tutorial, I'll edit the very same material over again using a kind of a different style of editing, what we call a drag and drop method of editing. And if you're new to editing, you'll be able to get an opportunity to see the differences and decide for yourself which style that you would like to adopt as you develop your own style. In the end, you'll probably end up adopting portions of both, and you may find yourself, like me, switching back and forth between 3-point style editing and the drag and drop method. Okay, but let's go ahead and re-edit this little portion using the 3-point style editing. Let's go back to this new sequence that we started here. And it might be worth it to point out that you'll notice that Edius can have a number of sequences in any given project. And that way, as you're working on different versions of your project, or perhaps different language versions, different lengths for different purposes, you can have a variety of different iterations of your video in one project. And the way that you open a new sequence or start a new sequence is a little symbol here. Just click on it, create new sequences, or Shift Control N. I believe there's also an option, a menu option up here, File, New Sequence. And once you've started a new sequence, you can give it a name. Just right click on it, go to Sequence Settings. We'll call this 3-point. And it might be worth it to open up our tracks here and maybe rename them. I usually like to at least start out with naming my tracks and hope to be able to keep myself organized through the course of an edit. And so let's go in and rename these tracks. It used to be in previous versions of Edius, you could just click on this area here and it would open up and allow you to rename. Now you have to actually right click and choose rename from your drop down menu. Let's go with ambient for the first one, and let's go with interviews for our second one. Our third one, because this is a video shot in Cambodia where the interviews are spoken in a native language, we had to have some translation work done and a voiceover talent record their voices. And so what we're going to do is add a track and name it voiceovers. And of course we need music, so let's name a track music. And it may be before we're actually done our edit that we'll have to add tracks. You can always do that. Just click in the area here and add audio tracks or video tracks as needed. Now, we want to be able to activate our audio tracks so that we can adjust and manipulate the volume or pan. Let's just change all of these to volume by clicking in this grayed out area here. And now we'll be able to raise our volume up and down or add node points. And let's see, what else do we want to do? Oh, we usually like to change these indicators to add source channel stereo, and that way we're adding all of our ambient audio to one track, all of our interview just to one track rather than having them spread out over a number of tracks. Okay, and we could, if we want to, also rename our video tracks. It's not as critical. And we could maybe name the second one Graphics. And we should be ready. Now, I usually like to start a video a ways down the time. And that way, if my video ends up going to broadcast, I can easily add bars and tone, a slate, and countdown, and that type of thing. Also, it's kind of nice to be able to just have a blank area at the beginning here to play around with ideas and kind of use it as a scratch area. All right, but as we see, it looks as though our timeline is expanded way out here, so all we're looking at is seconds on our timeline. You can tell where you're at on your timeline just by going up to this ruler bar here at the top of the timeline window. And notice that our time is indicated by hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. So right now, even though we've got a full timeline window laid out here, we're only at 25 seconds. And we like to start to more like around 10 minutes. So we need to contract our timeline. And you can do that by going over to this slider bar and sliding it to the right. And you'll see that the numbers start getting larger. And now we can find our 10-minute mark. Another way that you can contract and expand your timeline is assign this action to keyboard shortcuts, which I have done. This is very handy. I can contract my timeline just by tapping on my minus key and expand my timeline just by hitting the plus key. And you can do that by changing your keyboard shortcuts up under settings. I think we've had a previous tutorial that showed you how to do that. Okay, so let's contract our timeline down and look for our 10-minute mark. We can notice up here in the record window, we can see that these numbers change as we move our timeline. And so you can get a real up-to-date indication of where you're at just by looking at that. We see that we're now at 10 minutes and 18 frames into our first second. If you wanted to be very precise about this and set it exactly at 10 minutes, you could go up here and with your mouse move this up and down to change this and bring it right down so that your frames are at 0 and there you are at exactly 10. You can also, with your left and right arrow keys, be focused on the timeline first. Just bring your focus just by clicking on the timeline once. You can use your left and right arrow keys to move frame by frame, and you'll see that the frames are changing there. Let's go find our 10-minute mark again. I usually like to start a project by placing a black mat on the timeline for our video to fade up from. And so let's go over here to our graphics bin and find our color mat. Now, if we were using the drag and drop method, I would simply go to my media bin, my graphics folder, grab a hold of that color mat, that black mat, and just drag and drop it to the timeline. However, since this tutorial is demonstrating the 3-point style, we want to try and be consistent in demonstrating that and showing how you do that using a 3-point style, or at least accomplishing all of this without using the drag and drop method. Because I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, or if I know correctly, I could be wrong on this, I believe that Avid software does not allow you to do drag and drop. At least it didn't used to. And I remember trying to go back to Avid software, 6 years ago, maybe. I think it was sometime when I was deciding, as I was leaving Premiere Pro, trying to decide between Edius and Avid. I bought some Avid software, and it still didn't allow me to do this drag and drop method. It just didn't permit it. And so that was the reason I didn't go back to Avid. I went and found Edius, because it does allow you to do this. They may have changed their philosophy and maybe now are allowing you to drag and drop to the timeline. But just in case you're coming from an Avid environment where that's not possible and you're just not familiar with doing that, and that just seems strange, let's go ahead and be consistent with our 3-point style here. Now the trick is, with color mats, you can't double click on a color mat and bring it into the play window that way. When you double click on a color mat, you just get this pop-up window instead. So what you need to do is actually drag and drop this over into our play window. And you'll see that it doesn't really respond like normal clips. You don't have the time indicator there. You can't slide it back and forth. You have no real indication of how long that clip is. I believe by default it is the length that you define in user settings. So you can't really set your 3 points for this first black mat. But what we can do is set 2 points over on our timeline or in our record monitor. Let's set our out point right at the 10-minute mark, and then maybe go down 10 seconds and set an in point. And you'll see that we've now defined 10 seconds, or it looks like 8 seconds. As we look at our duration up here, let's maybe just slide this across so that we actually get 10 seconds here. Okay, and now that we have that defined, even though we don't have an in or an out over here on our mat, we can go ahead and send this to our timeline. Let's just check and make sure our video track is mapped to video 1. And we see that it is, and so we'll go ahead and overwrite to timeline, and now this will send the black mat for the full 10 seconds that we defined here. Okay, so now we have 10 seconds of black leading up to our 10-minute mark to start our program. And then the next clip that we will want is to have our opening title. This particular client likes to have a very simple opening title, just a nice and clean graphic here. And we'll see that Edius is remembering our in and out points from a previous edit here. And so we don't really have to go in and define an in and out point, but just for our tutorial's sake, we'll go ahead and set an in point here where the graphic is starting to fade up. And go to our out point, and it doesn't really matter where this out point is, because we'll probably fade it down manually once we get it over to our timeline. So just pick any point there along the way, set our out point, and now over here in our record monitor, we can maybe bring this timeline cursor over a little into our black mat. And once we've found a place where we would like to start this opening title, we can just go ahead and click and set our in point. And Edius will go ahead and set that in point precisely where that timeline cursor was. Now, before we send our graphics clip, we will want to go over here and map track 2 so that the graphic doesn't overwrite the color mat that we've set up here. We want to go on top of that. And so let's just move our indicator here up to video track 2. And now when we send our material, that graphic is going to land on video track 2. Okay. Now we can go ahead and play that out. Just to bring your timeline cursor to the beginning of the graphic and hit your space bar. And we see that we probably want to bring it out, start fading it off about there. And so what we want to do is open up graphics track 2 so that we can see our mix track there. And we want to activate or turn the mix on so that we can actually set a node here. And then we can go over and grab the end node here. Let's maybe just grab a hold of this and trim this back a little bit so that it's not going past our 10-minute mark. And slide this down, and now we'll have that graphics, that opening title fade off. Okay, so we now have our opening graphic, and we can go ahead and maybe chase after our music. Let's go to our music bin. And I believe that the one that we're using here is under ethnic and Asian, and this is it here. So let's go ahead and double click on that to bring the music into our play window. Now, unlike some programs, some video editing programs, Edius does not show a waveform when you place an audio track in the play window. But as we scrub through here, we see that we do have the music track there. And for the music track, we'll just start our in point right at the very beginning. And we could probably just take it right out to the end and set our out point, selecting the whole track, the whole music piece. And now, over here in our record monitor, we can set an in point, so we have our 3 points, and also now overwrite. Oh, first of all, we want to change our audio indicator here, our designator, I'm calling it, down, bring it down, slide it down. You'd think that you could just click down here and it would pop down there. but the way they've designed it, you have to slide this down, and now it's mapping track 4, and now when we send our clip over using the overwrite to timeline, we will see that audio, that music track, landing on track 4. Okay. All right, now, since we'll probably be fading up the first shot, we may want to actually dissolve or fade up that audio as well. So let's just trim that back a hair. And you'll see that because we have our insert mode checked rather than the overwrite mode, that we were able to just trim that by moving in this direction here. I usually like to edit using the overwrite mode. You'll notice that even though we had the insert mode selected, because we were using the overwrite to timeline, it performed very much like you were in the overwrite mode. You can be in the insert mode and work almost like you're in the overwrite mode by selecting this button to send your clips to the timeline rather than the insert to timeline. Okay, so let's just go back and set this to our overwrite mode, and this time as we trim this back, we'll notice that it slides over, and then you just point to the clip itself and bring it over, and now we can dissolve up from our color mat, which has given us blank audio tracks. And I can just use a keyboard shortcut for this because I have set my default transitions and assigned a keyboard shortcut for applying a default transition. So I think in a previous tutorial we showed you how to do that. So all I have to do now is hit Control D in order to add a fade up or a dissolve up to our music track. Okay, I think we can go after our first clip. I believe it's over here in this bin, the Angkor Wat, and we're looking for one of these nice iconic images of Cambodia. And as we scrub through it, we see that it's kind of a little shaky there. I believe I wasn't allowed to bring a tripod into this national park, so everything is handheld. But I think if we just grab a section here at the end, that it's not too bad, and we can maybe slow-mo it or take a still shot of it before we're all finished our edit to clean it up a little bit. But now we've set our in and our out points, and we can go over, and with our timeline cursor set right there at the end of our black mat, we can set an in point over here for our third point. And now we can, we better make sure that we're sending our material to the correct track. So let's go over here and slide this down to video track 1 and bring our audio and slide it up to audio track 1, our ambient audio. And now we can send that material to our timeline by pressing the overwrite button. Okay. And now we can add a dissolve here. And we now have a nice fade up with music and video. And if, as we listen to that, we feel that maybe we didn't get quite enough material there, we can stretch this out. We see it's kind of it goes unsteady there. Maybe we should go ahead and make a slow motion out of this. Right-click on your clip to make slow motions. Find your time effect option from the drop-down menu. Go to speed, and let's just maybe turn this into like a 30%. And now it'll probably at least give you the illusion that it's very steady, and we can bring this out a little bit more to kind of go with the music a little better. And we should be ready for our next shot right about there. And I believe our second shot is also in this bin. Let's take a look. Yes, these boys playing in the pond here. We could go ahead and just accept the in and outs that are already defined from a previous version of this edit. But again, just to point out for new editors, how you do this is this little in point over here symbol. Set your in point and play it out with your space bar, or scrub across to see where you want to take that video clip to and set your out point. And then over here, find where you want to start that clip and set your in point. Now notice that we don't have to go to the end of our clip to start our next clip. We can decide that no, we want to start our next clip right about there on our timeline. And we set our in point there. And because we're in the overwrite mode and we're sending our clips using the override button, when we send our clips, we're going to overwrite this last portion of our clip with the new material. Okay. Okay, and again, we could add a dissolve here, so we're dissolving nicely. We kind of hear that the ambient audio is a little loud there. We're getting a lot of insect noise there. And so with making sure our volume is on, we can go ahead and slide this volume down just by pointing to the little orange line there. If we wanted to expand this track out a little bit, we could go to height and maybe select 4 so we can see our waveform better and we can see our orange line just a little better. And then by holding down your Alt key before you point to the orange line and select it with your left mouse button, and you can slide that down with a dragging motion with your mouse. And now that insect noise shouldn't be so bad. Okay, and so now we can go after our next clip. I believe it's in our scenic bin, where we get kind of a nice hazy shot of the Cambodia countryside in the dry season. And we'll just accept the in and out points that are already defined there. And we can choose our in point over here. Now we have our 3 points, and our video and audio designators are in the correct track, so we can go ahead and send our clip. And so you can quickly get an idea of how this 3-point style editing works, where you define your in and out points on your play side usually, and then an in point on your timeline. And once you've got everything lined up with your video and audio tracks, you send your material. Let's just maybe go ahead and add a few more clips on our project here. I believe our next shot we could bring in our interview. And this is the girl that we're featuring in our story. Let's just go ahead, so maybe just scrub through this or play it with a space bar and see where we need to set our in point here. Okay, we want to catch her just as she begins her statement there. So start maybe just using our arrow key, go back just a little bit and set our in point again. And we can go ahead and maybe just slide this back and grab a good portion of it here. And we'll set our in point right at the end of that clip. But this time, because we are working with an interview, we want to change our audio designator here and slide it down to the second track so that our audio will go down to our interview track. And so I think we're ready. We can go ahead and overwrite to timeline, and we'll see that this interview comes in nicely. We've left the video on video track 1. Most of our main video is going to end up on track 1. And but the audio has come now down to the interview track. Okay, and we can maybe dissolve up to the girl from our. We see that our music is way too loud, and so we need to pull down our music. Let's go down to our music track and make sure that we're able to work with it. The volume is on. And so sometime just before the interview starts, we need to pull down our audio. Let's set a node on our audio track a second or two before she starts to talk, and then a second one right where she starts to talk, and then drag that down so that the audio track comes way down so that we'll be able to hear her better. Now we've brought it down too much. It really helps to kind of open up tracks that you're working with. We can maybe change this to 4 as well. And over here we can slide this up to see it better. And yeah, we see that we've brought that music track down way too much. Let's slide it back up here so that it's right about there. And it might even be just still a little bit low. course, before we're all finished the edit, we'll go through and fine tune the audio using special headphones, and that way we can be very precise about our audio levels. But for this tutorial, and usually for the first pass of an edit, I will just kind of rough things in. Okay, so she's coming in nicely. We can hear her well, but we can't understand her. And so we need to bring in some English voiceover here. And I believe that we have that over in our media bins under narration. And our voiceover talent is here. And go ahead and accept the in and outs that were already defined. We want to, what I usually like to do, and different editors have different styles about this, what I usually like to do is hear a little bit of the native speaker, so we can get a little color for their language, and actually see that that the person is speaking a language that is other than English, and so it makes more sense that the voiceover comes on and that it's not lip synced to the person. So we'll just let her talk for a little bit, and then bring her audio volume down and place our, let's set an in point over here, and place our voiceover track on our third track here. Let's move our audio indicator over here down to our voiceover track, and now we can send our voiceover talent right to where we want it to go. We slide that back, we see that it's just about right. My name is Danny. I live in a small village in the central part. Now, it could be that the person who did the voiceover had audio levels that weren't quite right. Let's maybe open up the voiceover track and expand that out a little bit, and maybe just bring that volume up a little bit. Holding down your Alt key, we can bring up the whole track a little bit. Hi, my name is Danny. I live in a small village in the central part of Cambodia. Okay, and we again might not have the best mix of music there. Let's maybe just bring that down a little bit. And of course, later, once again, we'll open up our audio mixers here and watch our audio levels on every track. Hi, my name is Danny. Before we send it to our client. Okay, well, that gives you a pretty good indication of what you can do with the 3-point style editing there. We might maybe just add a couple more here. She talks about how she has a couple of brothers. Let's maybe go find the brothers. Okay, I believe this was the shot we used here of her brothers on the swing. So let's set an in and out. Change our audio back to the ambient track, the track 1, and set an in point. Now I should point out that you don't really have to go to the effort of setting that third in point, because in reality Edius will send your material and place it wherever your timeline indicator is, and so it's a step you can skip. You don't have to go up here to the record monitor and place your third point, your in point over here, because Edius will just go ahead and place it right where your timeline cursor is set. So let's just go ahead and send it without making that in point, and see what happens. And sure enough, Edius has placed our media clip exactly where we wanted it to go, right where the timeline cursor was placed. Now, as we play that out, small village in the central part of Cambodia. I have 2 brothers and... Okay, we see that wasn't placed in the right place. Let's do that again, just to undo that. And let's just listen to our timeline this time instead of just arbitrarily pointing where somewhere. Central part of Cambodia. I have 2 brothers. So we want it to start by listening to the voiceover. We want to start that B-roll clip right where she talks about her 2 brothers. But again, we don't have to set the in point. We can just go ahead and timeline cursor place where we want it, go ahead and send the clip. However, I think it was just a little short. Let's just play it here and maybe get a feel for how long that should be. Maybe about that long. And now send our clip. And
I have two brothers and one little sister.
And the ambient audio there is a little loud, so let's just drag that down. And
I have two brothers and one little sister.
she talks about a little sister. Let's find the clip of that. I believe it's up here, where she's playing with sister on the step. And with our timeline indicator where we want. Notice that we don't, again, have to go to the very end. We can just, wherever we want to start overwriting that material, place our timeline cursor there, and then go ahead and send our material. Overwrite to timeline. Well, this time looks like we really got a lot of material there. This is what happens when you don't take the time to listen to your track and get a feel for how long it is. Visually, as I looked at this and scrubbed it back and forth, it didn't seem like it was that long. But if I had have taken the time to play it with a space bar, I would have seen that my in and out was way too long. So let's just try this again. Or another way that you can do it is just grab a hold of the end of the clip here and trim it back so that it's only a short portion there.
I have two brothers and one little sister. We all live together.
Okay, so that's probably enough to show you how three-point editing works. I might just show you one more thing here. One of the nice advantages of a three-point edit system is that it is very easy to replace clips using this system. So let's say that as we are working with this program and we are playing it, we say, you know, that's a nice shot, but sure would be nice if we had a shot with the sunrise in it. So let's see if we have anything in the scenic folder that is similar to this with a sunrise shot. Take a look through here and see, was this something that we could use? And so if we decided that we wanted to use this shot with the sunrise in it rather than the clip that is there, what we can do is go down to our clip that we want to replace. Let's maybe just expand out our tracks here so we can see what we're doing a little better. And what we can do is set an in point right at the beginning of that clip on our timeline and an out point right where the clip ends. And then what we really need to do is actually clear, because the in and out has already been defined here, probably from a previous edit. Let's go ahead and clear an out point, and I'll show you why it's important in a minute. Let's clear this out point so that all we have is an in point on this clip. Now we're ready to send this and replace this clip that's there. We can do that just by hitting the overwrite to timeline, and our clip is replaced. Can quickly add our dissolves. Now it won't be very easy to show you on this clip what the problem is if you have the out point defined. Let's maybe find another clip here. Probably one of these shots of planting rice will tell our story better. So let's go ahead and replace this shot again, set our in and out points. And then go over here and show you what happens if you have an out point selected in your source clip. If we do our replace clip now, we'll see that the clip gets replaced all right. And if you just scrub through it, you might think you're fine. But if you were to play that video, you'll see that what Edius has done is a fit to fill, and it has actually changed the duration or the speed of the clip, and we've got a fast motion clip all of a sudden. If we were to right-click on this clip and went to Time Effect and chose Speed from the drop-down menu, we'll see that it's actually, yes, it's running at 1474% of real time. And so just be aware that if you're replacing clips using the three-point method where you've got your 2 points defined on your timeline and 1 point over here, that if you've got an in and an out defined, that you need to clear your out point before you replace your clip. And that way Edius will only send over the portion that it needs to cover the clip that you want to replace and leave the rest. All right, well, I think that should give you a good idea of how you can do three-point style editing. And in our next tutorial, we'll show you how you can work with a different style of editing, the drag and drop method.